Got to start with the same topic we've been covering day after day until we get to that September 30th deadline. Of course, we are talking about the shutdown. We expected a big meeting between President Trump, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer to happen. Not gonna happen. And that has angered Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Take a listen.
Once again, Donald Trump has shown the American people he is not up to the job. It's a very simple job. Sit down and negotiate with the Democratic leaders and come to an agreement. But he just ain't up to it. He runs away before the negotiations even begin.
That was Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer calling out President Trump for backing out of their meeting. That meeting would be to help negotiate a bipartisan funding bill.
Joining us to talk more about the fight to fund the government is the Hill's Drew Petrimo. Drew, good morning to you. I want to read a headline from the print edition of the Hill today, everybody. GOP hopes to make potential shutdown as painful for Dems as possible. How can they do that?
Well, essentially blame them. You know, the Republican line here is that this is a clean funding bill. It's a short-term extension. There's not really any need to negotiate. The Democrats have supported these short-term clean extensions in the past, and because they're making these what Republicans view as outlandish demands, $1 trillion in spending to undo some of the cuts to Medicaid that were passed in the big, beautiful bill. Another, depending on how long you extend it for, but you're talking about either tens of billions of dollars over 1 year or as much as $350 billion over 10 years for these Obamacare subsidies. These are big asks the Democrats are making to go in a short-term spending bill. Republicans want to paint that as an obstruction to achieving this short-term extension. Democrats want to stake their claim on health care, saying we're fighting for people's health care, and the time to act on that is now.
Each side seems to think they have the upper hand if it comes to a shutdown, right? Let's see what Hakeem Jeffries had to say, the minority leader in the House. We have his statement. He said, Trump always chickens out. Donald Trump just canceled a high-stakes meeting in the Oval Office with myself and Leader Schumer. The extremists want to shut down the government because they're unwilling to address the Republican health care crisis, as you mentioned, Drew. That is devastating America. Corey, you want to read what Mike Johnson had to say?
Yeah, the speaker said, let's be clear on the Democratic position. Democrats want to shut down the American government, hurting American citizens, so they can give free taxpayer-funded health care to non-Americans.
There you go.
It was Taco Tuesday, so that's why you saw maybe Hakeem Jeffries' the Trump always chickens out reference.
Well, you know, this meeting was highly anticipated. The last time
anticipated it happening.
Well, you know, we all think back to the first Trump administration when there was this meeting between the president, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, was freewheeling. The cameras rolled through the entire thing. It was must-see TV for politics here in Washington. We were anticipating something like that again, but there was concern, I think, among Republican leadership that if you get these three in a room, the Democratic leaders and Trump, you don't know what the president is going to do, and there's this hot button political issue of these Affordable Care Act subsidies that expire at the end of the year. The Republicans are fighting amongst themselves in their conference over what to do with them. They know letting them expire would be a potential pitfall for them in the elections next year, so they are trying to figure out what to do with that. Putting them all together in the room could end up in agreement that could make it really difficult for the Republican conference. So the Republican leadership urged Trump to back out of this meeting.
If there's a shutdown, it hurts the district and the immediate suburbs in myriad ways. But specifically in the district, there's $1 billion on the table that the city really wants back. It was taken away. Can you put that into context about its importance?
So yeah, that $1 billion was actually included in the version that passed the House. It was a relatively clean bill. So what passed the House was a continuation of what are essentially Biden-era levels of spending, plus new money for security for members of Congress, the executive branch, and the Supreme Court, and this $1 billion DC fix that was taken out of the budget previously back when the original funding bill was passed in March. Was the risk anyway? It was the money was taken out, and it's been a huge thing for the local government here in D.C. talking about this is basically money that comes from taxpayers in the district. They haven't been able to spend it. There's been cuts to programs. The fix is there in this House bill. The question is, when the negotiations get rough and tumble, what ends up happening? The thinking is it will still be there in the end, but there's a lot still being fought over.
All right, so according to my watch, we're about 6 days out from that September 30th deadline. You know, Congress comes back Friday. The Dems are going to hold meetings on Monday and Friday, Monday of next week, Friday of this week. But Hakeem Jeffries is saying Republicans have canceled votes for the early part of next week. So really the working days are just dwindling down with each passing hour.
Yeah, Hakeem Jeffries actually wants to bring some Democrats back in town this week. He's telling them to come back to kind of push or put pressure on Republicans to say, hey, come back and negotiate. Why are you guys out of town? So that's a tactic from them. But the truth of the matter is this is really in the hands of the Senate right now. The House passed a plan, and now it's on the senators to try to figure out a way to get that passed through the Senate or come up with an alternative plan. And right now you have the Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and the Majority Leader John Thune not really talking to each other. So it's hard to see where this goes. And there is going to be a vote on the 29th. They're all going to come back. Thune plans on putting the House plan back on the bill. There'll be a lot of pressure. There's 10 Democrats that in the Senate that voted with Republicans back in March. What are they going to do this time around?
Well, we can't wait to see you for the next edition of Will There Be a Shutdown? Dun, dun, dun.
Season finale, September 30th. Maybe. We'll see. Drew,
Thank you, Drew.